it definitely gets worse. Like, this was by far the worst season. Hi guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show. Hello if you're new. So today's video is going to be a spoiler review of 13 Reasons Why, the fourth and final season. I hope everyone is doing as well as can be, and I really hope that everybody is being proactive in supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. And for those of you looking for resources, I've put some links in my bio that you can check out. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts on my commentary. I'm always up for a chat, I'm always up for a debate. And if you like this video, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. No hard feelings. So let's get into the review. So obviously 13 Reasons Why is coming to an end. Season 1 was, I'd say season 1 was a cultural event. There was a lot of controversy surrounding it, a lot of people saying it's glamorizing suicide and other social issues such as sexual assault. And I remember, I've said this so many times in so many different videos, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I remember first seeing it trending online and seeing like the charity backlash, and then other people saying, no, it's not, just watch it and give it a chance. And I was looking for a new teen show. I think I was still a teenager when I first started watching it. I can't remember what year it came out, but I believe I was either 19 or just turned 20. So I was just like, I don't really care about the backlash, let me just see what it's saying. And first episode, I was hooked, watched it all in one day, and I loved the season. And I disagree, I understand where people are coming from, but I disagree with those statements. I personally really love season 1. Yes, there were some issues with it. I feel like it addressed the issues in an accessible way for a young teenage audience, and still made it an entertaining piece of drama, because even though it's dealing with serious issues, you know, the main objective of the show is to entertain. I feel like there was a split of, you know, they should have just left it at season 1. Obviously it's based on a book which is based on season 1. But I really liked season 2, and I liked the direction season 2 was going in. But season 3, I had an issue with, and if you watched my spoiler review for that, you'll know why. You can definitely check it out here or at the end. I didn't like the humanization of these sex offenders. I wasn't here for it. There was a big debate. I got into a lot of debates with people about forgiveness and morality and rehabilitation. And I don't have any sympathy for sex offenders at all. I really don't. And I wish nothing but the worst things to happen to them. But I get both sides. Of the argument, and I just wasn't comfortable with the direction that they took with the whole redemption storylines, especially considering what championing. It just kind of felt like the message was getting a bit diluted, discombobulated, like maybe there was some shock factor going on, and I just wasn't here for it. So after watching season 3, I was pretty much over the show. I was like, I'm done with this show. But obviously season 4, I was going to review it because I'm a review channel. So I was going to review it, but I was mentally over the show. Then the trailer came out, and I've got a reaction for that. Shameless plug, you can link it up here at the end. And I was like, okay, maybe they're going to finish with a bang. But what I will say about the show is that they know how to make a good trailer. You know, you watch the trailer, you think it's going to be like the season 3 trailer looked awesome, but I did not like season 3. I thought it was a solid season, taking everything into account, but it wasn't my favorite. But season 4, it looked like a really good trailer, so I was like, okay, let me see what season 4 is saying. And you know, I thought season 3 was the worst season, but after watching season 4, it definitely gets worse. Like, this was by far the worst season. It's kind of ruined a franchise or a brand to the ground, because if they left it at season 1, even season 2, it would have been up there. But it's just going to be one of those seasons where it started off really great and then it just went to shit, unfortunately. So yeah, already giving you a heads up, I thought this was the worst season yet. But for the purpose of this review, let's just talk about the show. So this is going to be very plot heavy. My last review was like an hour long, I think, or 15 minutes. I don't think this review is going to be as long because I have a bit less to say. So obviously recapping from last season, find out that Alex is the one who killed Bryce and the gang cover it up, but Winston is lurking, so we kind of have an idea that Winston is going to come back and cause havoc for this season. Tyler's guns are found, so we know there's going to be a situation with Tyler perhaps maybe getting in trouble for this season. And Justin goes to rehab. So opening episode, there's a funeral, somebody has died. They've made it very clear that it's someone from the senior year, so we know it's not Monte's funeral. Instantly, I'm kind of thinking, well, who's dead? Gripping opening, somebody's dead, but then that kind of, well, who's dead thing kind of fizzles out until the very end when it's just kind of like, well, okay, it's clearly them who died. But I feel like the whole kind of who is dead thing, like who done it, died out really fast and was almost forgotten about within the narrative. Like there was no suspense built around that, which is one of my problems that I have with the narrative. But in terms of who I thought could potentially be dead, obviously number one suspect, I think based on the first episode, would be Clay, because I mean, Clay was going through it this episode. We know he's been struggling with having to hold in all of these secrets, and maybe they would decide, you know, fourth and final season, going to go out with a bang, let's kill off Clay. Because, you know, I feel like the general consensus is that Clay is safe, he's untouchable, they're never going to touch Clay. So maybe they wanted to flip things on its head and kill Clay. And the next person I thought it could be is possibly Zach. Obviously he's depressed, he's drinking excessively, his career prospects have been ruined by Bryce, and it kind of looks like he doesn't really have anything to look forward to. He wants to join the army, so I thought maybe he would end up killing himself. That was a possibility. Then my next suspect was Winston. I thought maybe he would be fishing around too much, because obviously we know he's coming back if you watch the trailer, and they just decided that they needed to eliminate the threat and he'd end up dead, or there'd be like an accident and he'd end up dead. You know, one of those ones. And then also the next suspect I thought it could possibly be was Alex, because he's had a history with trying to kill himself. Maybe he felt the pressure of the guilt of, you know, people's lives being ruined if things got out, so he was just gonna kill himself and leave a confession note, not implicating anyone. I thought maybe that could be a possibility. I didn't think it was going to be any of the female characters, to be honest. I didn't think Tyler could be a suspect either, because I felt like Tyler was doing reasonably well. But do let me know initially who you thought could potentially be dead. I didn't think it would. I didn't suspect anyone else. Didn't suspect Justin. Didn't suspect Charlie. Didn't suspect Arnie. So then I guess the next kind of storyline within this season, biggest storyline, I guess, was this whole threat of being outed. There's multiple threats. There's Winston who comes back. There's some of Monte's friends on the football team who start sniffing around, asking questions. Tyler is brought into suspicion because he's been talking with the police. And there was a lot of finger pointing. Oh, did he do it? Did he do it? You know, people are putting up the graffiti saying, oh, Monte was framed and stuff like that. And overall, I don't think that narrative was done very well. There wasn't really much suspicion there. They tried it with Winston coming up to everybody, asking all of these questions. But I feel like Winston as a character was not very intimidating. Winston's inclusion was not threatening or didn't add any suspense. It just kind of felt like we were hearing them say, oh my gosh, they could be watching us, but we didn't really feel it. We didn't feel the panic. We didn't feel the suspense. We didn't feel the pressure. Overall, that storyline of the suspicion and the investigation just kind of felt a bit flat to me. And again, I'm still confused as to why Charlie is even involved in this situation when he's literally known them all 5 minutes, and how they've all basically trusted this Charlie guy with their deepest and darkest secrets. I'm still confused by it, to be honest. I don't know if that's the police or the ambulance. I can't tell. So, yeah. But yeah, let me guys know what you thought of the whole kind of threat of investigation and being outed. Was it suspenseful for you? Did you feel the pressure, or did it just kind of feel a little bit flat to you? But let's talk about the main character focus plot storylines. So let's start off with Winston. Winston's character does not make any sense, and he still does not make any sense. The fact that he's in love with Monte just does not make any sense to me, considering they weren't together that long. They didn't know each other that long. Monte was using him as a fuck and suck machine. He beat him up. And then on top of that, Monte was a sex offender as well. So why are you defending? Maybe if he wasn't a sex offender, and a dead one at that, maybe the craziness would make sense. But to go so hard for somebody who was a violent sex offender is a bit discombobulating. Winston, he comes from a rich family. He goes to private school. Why would he want to compromise his private school education in his final year of high school to investigate the death of some boy he's known not very long who was a sex offender? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. He didn't even need to transfer to investigate. So that in itself was extra. I guess the writers thought they were doing something here with this storyline, but overall it just does not make sense. And it's very clear that Winston's character just needs help, because he's just falling in love with everybody and anybody. So I'm not sure whether they're trying to make Winston into a realistic person, or whether he's meant to be this crazy guy that falls in love with anybody who kisses him. You guys know what you thought of Winston's character. Do you feel like you can relate to him, or do you just are you as confused as I am? Let me know, guys. Then of course Clay's story arc, he's going through it this season. Obviously he was kind of going through stuff in season 1 and season 2, but it seems like everything comes to a head in this season, which I guess kind of makes sense. But what I'm not really here for is these hallucinations, because I feel like these hallucinations were poorly researched, because from my understanding he's going through some form of PTSD, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the symptoms of hallucinations, vivid hallucinations, sound a bit schizophrenia to me, another type of disorder rather than PTSD. So I kind of felt like this was just a bit of a cop-out. It's just the average, okay, we're going to make a character who's going a bit crazy, so we're just going to put some hallucinations in there, and also kind of use that to bring back Bryce and Monte's character. So overall, I wasn't really here for these hallucinations, and they got old very quick. And if you've read my reviews, things like those flashbacks, vivid hallucinations, I feel like they're just a cop-out and very lazy. Structure, just very lazy writing. We also see a lot of him speaking with this therapist. I'm not gonna lie, even though it's kind of built itself as this activism for mental health and mental health awareness because of the backlash that it got in season 1, these conversations with the therapist got boring real quick. It felt like I was in a therapy session with them, except that the therapy wasn't tailored towards me, so therefore I'm not interested. So there was just way too many long shots with Clay having this conversation with his therapist. It was boring in my opinion. And then of course we also find out that it was Clay that was actually doing all of this malicious stuff, doing all of this vandalism, saying he was the one who painted Monte was framed. And they don't really explain that well. I guess they were trying to say maybe he was having this manic episode where he blacked out and he decided to do this in his manic episode. Again, it just wasn't explained properly, poorly researched and poorly executed in my opinion. What do you guys think about Clay's story arc this season? Do you think it was done well? Do you think it was realistic? Or do you just feel like it was just a bit discombobulated? Let me know what you guys think. And then we have Jess, and I don't know, Jess's storyline, again, I feel like they've been a bit lazy with Jess's storyline this season. It kind of just feels like she's just obsessed with Justin, and then she's also on her activism stuff, which is kind of just like, because they're building her up to be this activist, this independent person, but then she's there complaining about not having a date for prom. I'm just like, are these writers serious? I can't take these writers serious, because it's just so discombobulating. And then she also has these stupid hallucinations as well. So it's just like everybody's having the same type of hallucination. So you can't even bother to research that people have different types of reactions to trauma. So it just kind of felt like it was just a blanket thing, because it felt like everybody was having hallucinations and the same hallucinations. It was just very piss poor in my opinion. And I'm still confused about what Jessica's character is meant to stand for. And we have Zach's character, and he's just obviously very upset about his career prospects being over, and he's an alcoholic, but they don't really delve into that, him being an alcoholic. It just kind of felt like a throw in. It was just like, okay, Clay's going through it, Jessica's going through it, so you have to go through it. So what are we going to do? Oh, we're going to make you an alcoholic, and you know, you're just going to be doing reckless and stupid behavior. So Zach just felt very lazy this season as well. And then Alex had decided to make Alex gay this season. And I'm all for gay representation. It's definitely needed. But I have a problem when I feel like it is just a throw-in or something to spice things up. And I felt like it was the same thing with Monte. They did that to spice it up, but that was a very problematic relationship. But I feel like they just threw him being gay in there to spice it up. And I feel like that's what they're doing with Alex. A lot of people, including myself, I ain't gonna lie to you, was thinking a queer storyline was gonna come a bit earlier on with Alex. But I feel like the fact that they just kind of just chucked that in there in the final episode, and all of these stupid questions like, oh, so when did you know that you were gay to Tony? Like, come on, really? That's the best that you could do, writers? And don't get me wrong, people can definitely, you know, unravel their internalized repression of their sexuality later on in life. There was a lot of people in my school, in secondary school, that presented as heterosexual, and then in the later years, so like year 10, came out and said they were lesbian, or, you know, later years, you know, after everybody has left school, they came out. So that is definitely conceivable, but I feel like they've done this as to spice things up rather than actually caring about representation. Alex kisses Zach, and then he has a relationship with Winston, and then he has a relationship with Charlie. Yeah, there was a lot going on with that storyline. I think he did have one hallucination, but he just had the one, I believe. Again, so these hallucinations were just kind of just like hit and miss. They weren't hitting everybody, which is a bit strange. And then we had Justin's storyline, and he was basically just came out of rehab, and he was just trying to get on the straight and narrow, trying to stay clean, wanted to get into a good college. He was struggling with his sobriety, and then there's a big storyline with him at the end, which I'll get into later on. It just felt very repetitive, and I feel like, I guess if you're going to continue a kind of struggling drug addict storyline, it's going to be repetitive, but I don't really think that his storyline still felt a bit lazy to me, to be honest. And then Arnie, she's back. She's not as prominent in it as other characters, and it's still very much her role in last season. She's trying to solve everyone's problems. She's trying to save everyone. She's trying to keep everyone in check. She's trying to keep Winston in check. I just gotta say that I think it's actually disgusting how people have drove her off the internet last season, with all of the hate that she received for simply playing a character. And I like to say, if you're watching this video and you actually personally went to her page, any of her social media pages, and personally sent her hate, I just like to say publicly that you are a disgusting human being, and you need to do some self-reflection. I mean, the girl shaved her head. I don't know whether that was a stylistic choice or whether she was stressed and going through. So if you are somebody who's watching this video thinking about sending her hate again, I would advise you to stop. And if you are thinking about sending her hate for playing a character, and you posted a black square on your Instagram and hashtag Black Lives Matter, and then the other week we're hashtagging Mental Health Awareness Week, you're an even bigger dickhead, and you need to do some self-reflection. Public statement there. Arnie's not my favourite character, but, you know, we just keep it in the comment section in the reviews. You don't need to be sending people hate, especially when they are not their characters. You don't need to be sending people who played a certain character hate. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Let's save the hate for people who deserve it. Let's use that aggression towards other things. So then we have Tyler's storyline, and he was not really that active within this season, I don't think. I feel like he was kind of swept under the rug. They were just like, okay, we used you last season, but we still kind of used you for this season. So his story arc kind of takes a back seat. Obviously, he's involved in that whole FBI informant situation, and people were suspecting him of, you know, being a school shooter when that school drill was happening. But overall, not much drama for Tyler, to be honest. And then there's Tony's storyline, which again I thought was a bit lazy. It was kind of like him coming to terms with the fact that his parents were not going to be able to come back to the US, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to go to college because he's Latino, and you know, people have this view of him and he feels like he should just adhere to that view of him. So he takes up boxing. And there's this thing about him going back and forth with accepting the scholarship to a university to do boxing, which I just thought was just absolutely stupid. He eventually decides to go to the university, which was great. But I feel like, again, Tony's storyline is pretty lazy. It kind of just feels like they focus entirely on him being Latino and the issues that he faces being Latino, rather than him just being a Latino teen, if you get what I mean. We have some new-ish characters. Obviously, we have Charlie. Like I said, I don't really know what he's doing there, to be honest. They've made him Alex's boyfriend, but I feel like I'm still not really sure what his purpose really does serve for this season. No disrespect to the person who plays him. Then we have Diogo, which is like this new jock guy that we've never seen before that they brought in for this season. He's cute. His eyebrows could definitely... He's cute. He's a good piece of eye candy. And he starts, you know, spearheading this investigation into Monte's death. And he's a bit of a dickhead sometimes. And very antagonistic towards Clay. I guess they needed his character to kind of spearhead, you know, support for Monte. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I wouldn't put it past... From what I know from the culture of school, I think people would definitely still back somebody who was a known sex offender if they were their friends. Publicly back them, publicly support them. So I think that is kind of realistic in a sense. And obviously they needed him as a love interest for Jessica. But yeah, again, he just kind of felt like a throw-in character, to be honest, in this whole mess of a season. And then we've got Monte's sister as well. And initially I thought she was going to bring something to the narrative, but she really just didn't bring anything, to be honest. There was no suspense there. There was no kind of, oh, is she going to find out everything? None of that. And the fact that we're just kind of seeing her now is just kind of just like, come on, writers. Like, you could have at least written her in last season. The main part of this narrative was kind of like the hallucinations with Clay and other characters. So like Jessica, Alex, where we see Bryce and Monte. But particularly with Clay, he has Bryce and Monte often coming up to him in his delusions, trying to make him feel guilty for what he did. And overall surrounding Bryce and Monte, there's this overall feeling for most of the characters saying that he didn't deserve to die, or they feel guilty for what they did, but they've got to move on. I think Jessica was the only person who said that, yeah, he deserved to die. And again, there was a kind of feel of redemption. We do see a snippet with Bryce's mother coming back on the scene, talking with Arnie, offering her money for college, and saying, oh, you saw something good in my son. In regards to that storyline, should Arnie have taken the money? I mean, money is money, girl. I would have taken the money. Money is money, girl. I ain't gonna lie, I would have taken the money, because money is money, child. You know, money makes the world go round, shawty. But would you have taken the money or not, considering the source of the money? Are you a kind of not all money is good money type of thing? Or do you not discriminate against dollar bills? I mean, it's not from him personally, it's from his mother. So, I ain't gonna lie, I would have took the money. What would you have done? But yeah, again, I was just uncomfortable with it, especially with Monte. I feel like with Bryce, he was a bit more insidious with his flashbacks. With Monte, it was a kind of like 50-50. half of the time he was like a reasonable human being, half of the time he wasn't. There was this whole section where he was basically saying how he sorry about what he did to Tyler and how he just did it out of anger. He blacked out and he lost himself. And I was just like, what is going on here? Are we trying to justify Monte's actions here? And it's just disgusting in my opinion. I feel like it's just disgusting. So yeah, I just feel like we could have done without that. But I guess because they started that last season, I had to continue it. But I think it would have benefited dropping that and losing that. Did Monte and Bryce deserve the hands dealt to them? Did they deserve to die? Well, let's start off. Did Bryce and Monte deserve to die? I feel like I have no qualms about sex offenders dying or being killed. I know for each person it's different, but for me personally, I have no issue with it. So yeah, I feel like sex offenders deserve the worst things to happen to them. I'm not mad at what happened to them, but in terms of Monte being framed for murder, I think because of the simple fact that he is dead, it's definitely easier for me to accept. I think maybe if he was alive, maybe that could be a different story for me. It could be a bit, obviously he's a bad person, but he deserves to be sentenced for the things that he actually did. Maybe, but there's still a part of me that would be like, well, he's a shitty person, he was violent, so lock him up. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys what you think. Moving on, in terms of the romance this season, I wasn't really invested in any of the romances this season. I'm not sure if Zach and Chloe are still together. Obviously Chloe pops up here and there in the season. They don't really make that clear if they're still like a thing. And her, I feel like, I think she did move to a different school. I think she did. But yeah, she was just kind of just in and out. We obviously have the romance between Arnie and Clay. I'm not sure, did they get back together at the end? I'm not sure, but they kind of just have this makeup thing, and they have this like power struggle in their relationship because Arnie is always, looking out for him and looking after him, and Clay, I don't know, has the issue with that. Then of course Jessica and Justin, it's the same every season. They make up, they break up, then they hook up back up together, but then obviously the situation that happens at the end. And then Jessica also has this relationship with Diego. And Jessica's relationship, I'm not really sure if I can stand any of them. I feel like I have a love and hate relationship with Jessica and Justin because I feel like they were kind of soulmates, but like their relationship is just so messed up. And even though I find Justin's character really likable, what he allowed to go down, I personally still have an issue with that. And I can't really ignore that. But then it is kind of easy to ignore it because they have such great chemistry together as a couple. So I've got to ask, are we standing Jessica and Justin or not? I guess Diego's cute on that relationship. And then of course we've got the Alex and Winston relationship. Winston is a weird guy. He literally just falls in love with anybody within like the first 2 minutes of their relationship. So I feel like because I find Winston's character annoying, I couldn't stand that. Alex and Charlie, they were another cute couple, but again, it just felt very rushed and a bit of a throw-in. So I couldn't personally stand them because it's just kind of like, this is just so random. I think maybe the only relationship I could really invest in this season was Justin and Jessica's. I ain't gonna lie. Especially in the final episode, I ain't gonna lie. They touched my heart, man. But one issue that I had with Wood is this relationship that they were kind of forming between Tyler and Monte's sister, and I just feel like that is entirely messed up and very unrealistic. It can happen definitely, but I just feel like no person who has been victimized by somebody would want to go out with their family member. I just don't see that storyline as realistic, and I feel like it's a little bit messed up, Yeah, the sister didn't do anything wrong, but I just feel like by association, like the trauma, like you're going around her house and you're seeing pictures of the person who sexually assaulted you. Yeah, I feel like that was messy on the writer's part, but let me know what you guys think about it. Do you feel like it was cute, it was romantic, or do you feel like it was a little bit strained? And they also kind of touch on other relationships, specifically Jessica and Arnie's relationship and their friendship. They kind of keep going back to the fact that Arnie slept with Bryce, and that was like such an unforgivable thing to do. And then like there was just like lots of animosity between Jessica and Arnie, but then they made up, and it just felt like they had recycled this whole situation before. And then obviously Clay and Justin, and how Clay kind of felt like Justin was the new golden child and how he had taken his place, and the conflict between them. And I feel like they definitely could have explored that a bit deeper than they did. It just felt very on the surface with that. So in terms of the narrative, overall it's pretty messy. There was just so much going on, but then not really anything going on. Like there was a lot of content that they put in there, but there was no engagement. They dragged it out. It was so boring at times. I'm glad that there is less episodes than last season, but even now I feel like this all could have been like a movie finale, you know, because like the content was not quality content. The series, again, they address lots of social issues, but I feel like the way that they address it is very performative. Of course, they address Tony's situation, you know, his parents being undocumented. Schools, they carry that on with Jessica, but it just wasn't as hard-hitting and engaging as the prior seasons. It didn't really feel like they were really opening any sort of dialogue this season. It just kind of felt very recycled. And ironically, in Jessica's speech that she gave at graduation, she was like, you know, people saying that she keeps repeating the same point and the point has been made. And I ain't gonna lie, I feel like this whole series, the point had been made, you know, season 1 stretching it to season 2, and it would definitely, the point had been hammered into the ground by season 3. So I thought that little speech was a bit ironic. They also just randomly throw in this school shooter scenario / storyline about school drills and stuff, and I'm not gonna lie, it just felt very random. It just felt very random. Obviously they needed to link that in with Tyler, but I just feel like that whole school shooter drill was just very random and didn't really start any dialogue, in my opinion. It just kind of felt like, okay, there's a school shooter drill, people are crying in the classroom, calling their parents, you know, the performances were not that convincing, and then Clay's just shouting in the hallway. That's what that whole storyline felt like to me. But what do you guys think? Do you think that was an important conversation to bring in? Obviously they kind of link that in with policing in schools and racial profiling, and there was this whole riot that started in the school, cars burning and explosion. It was just crazy and very unrealistic in my opinion. On top of that, there was obviously the whole situation with Tony suspecting Tyler as being the school shooter, and obviously he wasn't. And then there was this whole like, you shouldn't report him, you should, I've got this obligation. So it was just like mixed messages, because I feel like the show was saying you should report people suspected of being a school shooter because it's better to be safe than sorry, but then it's like you shouldn't prejudge people because you could be wrong and people could change. But at the same time, like, this guy was like fully gonna shoot up the school like a season and a bit ago. So it's just like, I'm so confused. What is the message here? Overall, the narrative was just way too messy this season. There was a lot going on, but then it felt like nothing was going on as well. Winston was here in the beginning, then he disappears, then he comes back. The hallucinations are here one episode, then they disappear. We're spending half of the season in the therapist room. Then they kind of just chuck in Justin's storyline in there, and then they chuck in Jessica's storyline. It was just, there was a lack of structure there. I feel like there's no excuse for you to have a poor structure or final season. The acting all across the board was pretty underwhelming. I feel like everybody's acting pretty much downgraded from the last season. Arnie still is not a good character. I'm not sure if she's directed differently or whether it's the actual actress that is not a good actress. Zach's acting was not great this season at all. Him trying to be this depressed alcoholic, I was not buying it. Clay, the acting quality diminished for me. He was pretty much one note this whole thing. Like, I didn't get like different emotions from him. It just kind of felt like he was one level this whole season. Jessica as well, I kind of felt like she only had two emotions. I feel like the acting quality decreased for her as well. She wasn't really that as convincing as she was in the past seasons, in my opinion. I feel like her strongest performance was in the final episode with the hospital scene with Justin. And I feel like Justin was the only person who did a solid job this season. I think maybe Tyler as well actually was pretty solid. And I guess Tony as well with the material that he was given. But overall, I was a bit underwhelmed by the acting, to be honest. So yeah, let's get into the ending, the final episode. Obviously, after episode 9, we find out who's probably going to be the person in the casket at the funeral, and it turns out it's Justin. And I guess I had to pick somebody. I was thinking it was probably going to be somebody big or Winston. And honestly, how he died, I'm not all the way on board with. I get it. Obviously, he was homeless. He was homeless. He was a sex worker, and he was a drug addict. But the way that they gave him HIV, but the way that they gave him AIDS, I just kind of feel like it just feels like a throw-in. It just feels like, how can we make this a big storyline? Not only are we going to kill him, we're going to kill him slow, but we're going to kill him with AIDS. And bearing in mind, he was having sex with men for money as well. I don't know if it's problematic or not, guys. I don't know. I got to hear from you guys. Is it problematic? Is it problematic, guys, that they gave Justin AIDS? Is it problematic? I got to know. I feel like it was kind of problematic because I don't feel like they were trying to start a dialogue here. I feel like it was, we're going to give him AIDS because this is going to be a massive storyline. Everyone's going to be shocked. But what do you guys think? And, going into that, obviously, and then straight away when they said HIV's progressed to AIDS, obviously he's going to die, and he's going to die very slowly. And I was just like, I'm over this show. But, I'm not going to lie, I did feel for those hospital scenes, I feel like Justin did do a great job dying. I feel like some of it was a bit of a cliche, everybody coming to visit him in the hospital, Zach refusing to come in initially and then coming in eventually, and then the whole goodbye. Some of that was a bit cliche, but I feel like there was some bits there that were strong. And then the whole funeral scene, obviously the speech made it seem like something really dramatic had gone in the school, somebody had committed suicide. But the speech just seemed a bit discombobulating considering that he was a drug addict. Obviously there's only so much you can do to help a drug addict. So I feel like that whole speech about, we need to do better by our kids and stuff like that, this seemed a little bit strange to me. And then obviously Winston decided to drop the case because he was in love with Alex. Again, it just seems so stupid. And everybody basically went along with their lives. Everybody's doing good and everybody got a place in college. Obviously, throughout there was kind of like, am I going to get a place in this college? Am I going to get a place in that college? And then obviously Clay and Tony drive off to go to Tony's university. And they drive in the car, they don't say anything, and then it ends, which I thought was a bit shit. I thought they were going to do some type of montage to commemorate the season ending. Obviously, season 1, it was a cultural moment, I think. So the fact that they didn't really put effort into the ending was a bit rubbish, obviously. And we saw some of the people from season 1 who's miraculously disappeared in season 3. So we saw Courtney, we saw Ryan come back. I feel like it's cheeky that they bring them in like just at the end. Like, where were you the rest of the season, honey? They literally just bring them in for like the last 10 minutes. It's actually so disrespectful. No Marcus, no Sherry. I'm pissed off. And then they didn't even bring Hannah back either. They reused the clip from season 1, I think it was, or season 2. So they didn't even bring Hannah back for, a little ghost goodbye, So yeah, I think overall the ending was very underwhelming overall. In terms of the other aspects of the production, cinematography wasn't as great as it was for season 1 and season 2. There was some nice shots here and there, but overall quality diminished. Like I said, narrative was messy, poorly written in my opinion. The acting was a bit underwhelming. It kind of just felt like, we're going to make this season, so this is what we're going to do. it was just drawn out. Like, they gave us an hour and a half final episode, which was just not needed. I feel like it would have been better off as a film finale, in my opinion, but it's not really binge friendly. It was very difficult to get through. I'm not gonna lie, you might be tempted to skip some bits, and I feel like if you do skip some bits, you're not really gonna be missing out on much. Definitely gonna be something that you might not watch in one day, because it's not very binge friendly this season, because there's just not enough going on. And it's not structured very well. What was I going to say? Soundtrack, decent. It's always a decent soundtrack. Costume, decent. What I will say is that whoever did Arnie's hair and makeup needs a raise. The hair was on fleek, the edges were on fleek, the bun was on fleek, the braids were on fleek. Job well done. That is how you do black hair, because I've seen a few Netflix shows where they have black actors on there and they leave out the edges are looking a mess, honey. So shout out to whoever did Arnie's hair and makeup. It's unfortunate that it's had to end on a low, but yeah, I was disappointed by this season, very disappointed. But I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting great things, but I wasn't expecting it to be worse than last season, if you get what I mean. So I think, taking everything into consideration, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5. Very strong 2 out of 5. Almost a 2.5, but not quite, because they didn't really give me much to work with. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of my review, not as long as my last one. But yeah, do let me know what you thought of this. Do let me know what you thought of the final season, and do let me know what you thought of my thoughts on the final season, and let me know what you would rate it out of 5. What you would rate it out of 5. Rate it out of 5. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I do have some other 13 reasons why content coming. So I've done a watch along the first season episode 1 reaction coming out soon, and I've also did a reaction to the first and the last episode of this season coming out as well, so stay tuned for that out. And I've also got a video where I'm going to be ranking the seasons in order coming soon as well, so definitely stay tuned for that. I'm still trying to get to 1.3 subscribers, so if you like this video, I'd appreciate you subscribing to my channel and helping me out. Till next time, guys, bye.